Yahoo! Rough here. And I just cleaned off the, I'm not going to call these workbenches. They're more like my work carts because we've got some actual, I shouldn't say like my job to do, but we have a job to do. Got a bit of IT support to make happen. You may have seen it based on the... Oh, I was going to put my bag away. And, well, that didn't fare very well, did it? Grab a few objects here. Then I'll fix you guys and gals. I have no idea why the GorillaPod clamp guy decided just to overturn itself. It's still not holding any weight. I did have to plug the camera in because we're only at 30% battery, and that's usually not enough. Alright. Okay, so if you guys need a good notebook, get the reversed dot book from Rhodia. Oh jeez. This is a note for something in here. I had a sticky note about some hours I worked on the side here. Well, we're actively plugged in. You're probably like, what is the video for? You've taken so long. Well, the ASUS NUC. And you're like, ASUS NUC? Yeah, ASUS NUC. Which is what made this a little harder than, maybe not harder, a little bit different, let's say, than expected. For those that don't know, we've had a close friends of mine computer over there for some time. If you notice, it's finally gone. Yes, it has made it 2 hours south of here. Traffic, probably almost 3. Finally it has made it there. And literally what? The day or two before taking that down, I got called about this. And I actually still had a day off because I've taken with the holiday that was happening here, I took an additional Friday off to make best use of, when I have a 4-day weekend sort of thing. That's King Arthur you just saw. Well, we use these NUCs at a farm that I help at. You guys have seen some of the stuff over there before. And I do like security systems, general user systems. We got a Synology NAS over there. A bunch of shit. Just sort of small business IT stuff. Well, we switched from doing like full desktops to the individual systems just being NUCs, Intel NUCs. Since like 3rd gen, I want to say. I think I have a 3rd gen around here. They definitely had a couple 4th gens. I think 1 6th gen maybe. I got some of those kicking around here, dead ones that I just haven't dealt with. Well, they called about this one being stupid slow, and you're obviously going to be like, well, obviously you have it here, so that is why this whole video is happening. Yep, well, I thought I was going to be able to repair it, as in I thought it was a Windows thing or a software thing. So initially I'm going through here, and I'm getting some stuff working. I'm like, it had upgraded itself to Windows 11. I had noted that down previously. I hadn't done it. Nobody there had done it and prompted it. Windows 11 is fairly particular. We got a King Arthur helping us out, and I guess that means a Paisley Murray as well. Hey, Paisley Murray. Yeah, this is Pocari Sweat. Pocari. So I get a little drink here. So I thought that it was like Windows corruption. I've seen it at my day job. What happens when you upgrade systems to Windows 11, or you manage to get them upgraded to Windows 11 without installing the Windows 11 BIOS on them. Like, you don't make sure they're on an updated BIOS beforehand. It can go, but it won't run well because the correct settings aren't in there, and it's going to run... Like, if it's not on in hardware, Windows 11 can compensate by running it in, like, a software version of the hardware version. Otherwise, things are also just grumpy because it defaults to, like, the built-in Microsoft Intel chipset drivers rather than the real, like, the actual, like, Intel-produced Intel chipset drivers, etc., etc. So I'm like, I'm chipping through there. I also see some software on here that I didn't install. They didn't seem to know what it was. Like, it wasn't viruses. It was just, like, extra shit. Like, say if you use the utility and it, you know, like, your average person, if a utility that they are used to using says, like, hey, you should install this or try this, they'll just hit yes and next and disregard it. Come here, get in. I know you want to be on my lap. Come on. Yeah, come on. Oh, we have lap kitten. You probably can't see her. You're not going to stay? Here. What about this? Do you want that? Want the scritcher? So I go out there and I'm troubleshooting this. I'm updating the BIOS. The BIOS update actually went fine. It was after that, and actually before even the BIOS update, what ended up happening as I'm doing these restarts, trying to resolve things, is the power button stops working. You know, and you're like, what? How are you getting it to reboot then? Well, this has an AC adapter, so you do like you do with power. What you would do is you just unplug the AC adapter for 10 seconds, plug it back in, it would just turn on. Right? So nothing crazy complex or anything. But, you know, power button's dead. And they leave these just run, because they have to. Moo cows need constant monitoring. The software for it, like I've actually suggested in the past, possibly switching that to like a virtual machine on a server or something like that. That'd be much more conducive to having these guys run like the active monitoring software and stuff like that. But a lot of businesses, for those that aren't aware that haven't done IT for them, if the thing that they're doing continues to work and they can still get updates for it and it's still supported, they're not gonna fuck with it, you know. So that is why, even though these have network, like I have a boot drive in here, back in the day it would have been, you know, like I think we were down to even like 60 or 80 gig SSDs way back in the day. You know, we went to like 120 or 250. At one point there had 750 gig hard drives doing the backups of the internal SSD. Nowadays we're using SATA. The reason why I got the thick one is we have a SATA SSD backing up the what would have been SATA, and then later SATA M.2, and now NVMe boot drive SSDs in here, or SSD in here. So that's why I got the thick one, is because we want 2 drives. There might be some aftermarket ones that allow like 2, or I think 3, or possibly even 4 NVMe SSDs installed in here, but I want something I can get off the shelf. Sadly, that's not always the case. Basically went through though and tried fixing this guy, and as I was making some progress on the operating system and the software on the operating system, and possibly like, you know, doing your DISM, doing your SFC fixes, you know, maybe a check disk I was hoping to get to, you know, but before then I had to get it like, I was hoping BIOS update, get some drivers on there, maybe boot into safe mode once, try to do some cleanup that way or see if it improves. And then prior to the BIOS update, the power button stopped working. Not a huge thing, because like I said, you unplug the power, you plug it back in, and it would automatically turn on. So not a problem. BIOS update happens, nothing is fixed. Same issue happens. Have to unplug, plug it back in, turn it back on. It even does it after the BIOS update. It only does it once or twice though. As I get further and further in, eventually, one time, I go to restart, and this power button, besides not working, there's like it's pretty much impossible for me to show now because it's dead. But in here, there's a power, like a logo for a power LED that's blue. That will light up, and even though the power button doesn't work on this, that means it's getting power, right? Well, it stops showing that. And then I pull the power, wait 10 seconds, plug it back in, nothing. No lights on the back, like networking, nothing. And the one thing I'm seeing here now is, I don't know if this will be showable via camera or not, but the little peg for the power plug, it looks tarnished. Normally that should be shiny, just like the outer. See? Outer is shiny. That inner one should be shiny too. I only just noticed that now. Either way, it doesn't really matter because dead brick, right? And I don't think it's anything related to the drives or anything because like it's not seeing power. I did try plugging the AC adapter that comes for this into another power brick, no dice. I checked the AC adapter itself with a multimeter, you know, like tip inside of the connector. It had the what is it, 19 volts, 20 volts that it's supposed to have. 19 volts. It's like basically this is like a laptop effectively. Is how it's like powered and that sort of thing. Why do I have all over this table? It's like wood or cardboard or something. I mean, I know this thing's not clean because it's from a cow farm, but unless it's all falling out of this thing, which it could be. But what that meant is time to get it replaced. And I warned them, hey, we might have some interesting time doing this because this is an Intel NUC. We had previously stuck with the Intel ones, even though there were third-party ones out there. Because these, for the most part, were just available off the shelf from Newegg. You just hop on there. This one, or one of the ones of this generation during Corona-chan, COVID, Corona-chan, they actually came from Walmart. And I've talked before how Walmart has been a good place to get AMD CPUs as well, where when they're sold out in other places, Walmart has them in stock. And like Walmart, not like a reseller on Walmart. Walmart has it in stock. I think that has to do with the fact that people don't think to buy a lot of these things from Walmart. This, for those wondering, is a NUC 10. Here, we can get the full model. It's an i7. Right there. Let's see if we can 5x it in. Bow. So it's a NUC 10 i7 FNH1. We've had i3 NUCs before. We've had i5 NUCs before. We've also had more systems and less systems. I think we're down to 2 or 3 now, but i7, because it turns out we need less but more powerful systems for the way this stuff is run there. A lot of these do now get used as everyday office systems as well, besides running their software. That's where something like a server with a virtual machine could come in handy, because you could just do like one virtual machine running their software, or one for each piece of software, and then you could get lower end NUCs. We used to have more of them to have dedicated devices per software. Over time, the i7 ones tend, like i3 was starting to get like back in the era, like in the 3rd and 4th gen era, and even through 6th or 7th gen, when everything was quad core or dual core, if it's a laptop part, and these effectively use laptop parts, really didn't matter, because it's same core, same cache, same everything. But once we start getting up into, what would that be, like I think 7th gen that ended, so 8th, 9th, especially 9th and 10th gen and that sort of stuff, that's where this mattered, because getting the i7, you would actually get more cores, you would actually get more cache, you would actually get all that sorts of stuff. But yeah, we had to get a 10th gen we got a 10th gen at the time. 11th gen may have been out, and say like a manufacturing of November of 2020. So that should tell you these were quite hard to get. I think I got one through Best Buy, and the other one, they were out when I had to go get another one during that period. And the other one came through Walmart, of all places. Check there again. Walmart, completely out. So what the hope is, I know this is a long preamble, but this guy's dead. Dead as the box does not see power anymore. The owner of it, or the operator of the company, thought that this was going to be bad news because of how slow it was. For example, of how slow, opening up a file explorer window, like a folder, like Windows E, you're like, oh, it takes a fraction of a second, right? 10 minutes. 10 minutes on this guy when it was working. So something was definitely up. I heard the fan making, bad bearing fan noises, but we could replace, all this stuff is mostly standardized. I'm sure you can get a replacement fan for in there. And I was planning on that, once we get it working, we can get it working a little bit better. Sadly, not the case. I mean, realistically, we're in May of 2025, so realistically, you should be replacing your computer 3 to 5 years. I'm not saying you can't use it longer than that, or you can't replace it shorter than that, but generally, at your 3-year mark, you're going to start losing software support, meaning there will be new software coming out that will require new hardware in it to take full advantage of the software, right? And then at 5 years, you're going to start running out of hardware support, as in they are going to start discontinuing. Like right now, the 10th gen no longer, as of last year at some point, gets graphics driver updates. Officially speaking, it's not supported in 24H2 Windows 11. If you're worried about now technically that only allows people who are going to Windows 11 and are selling systems. The bigger important thing is people who are refurbishing or selling systems. You have to have an 11th gen or newer if you're going to do that. Microsoft has said if you can get it on Windows 11, they will support it on Windows 11. So you might have to put this on 23H2, then go to 24H2, if that makes sense. Something else to mention about this is the wired networking went out within the past year as well. And what I mean by out is Windows doesn't see it at all. It's enabled in the BIOS. Everything's happy, hunky-dory. It doesn't see it. I don't know if you can see this in the light, but there's actually a dark, shadowy haze below it. That kind of points to potentially it being burned out. If you notice around here over by the USBs, there is no marks like that. There is not any by the HDMI, which we were using HDMI for, I believe, their main monitor, or for a TV they have. And then this is a Thunderbolt, actually. Oh, ever since NUC's got Thunderbolt. Stupid cool. Useful. But this was just being passively converted to DisplayPort for a monitor. The new one actually has dual HDMIs, super useful, because then we don't have to convert anything, and it still has the Thunderbolts, I believe. But if you look, there's this dark coloration below the, I don't know if that's coming through on the lighting properly, but below the Ethernet jack. So there's a chance that we may have gotten, a thunderstorm might have backfed through it or something like that. These and all of their stuff is on UPSs. That still does not protect everything. For those wondering out there, UPSs really, really do help. And they have actually saved, there was stuff where when there's been a backfeed on a power surge from the power company, it has killed everything in the office except for the stuff on the UPS. We did replace the UPS because there was actually a dead port on it as well. but it saved, like your hardware, right? But that doesn't, because in this case the networking is not going through like a surge protector or UPS. And on how the farm is set up, there's also 2 pins in here that are different colored than other ones. That would be very hard to show on camera. But something likely, with how this power pin that's supposed to be shiny is darkened, and like the network adapter like is gone hardware wise. This and that happened within a year. This thing kind of going to shit. We were not, like I said, the owner of this thing was not at all that surprised. Sad thing is I thought I was making progress fixing it. It was looking up. I had like 2.5 hours that it's always fun to bill for putting into it. And this is like a question to you guys. If you put 2.5 hours fixing this and it shit the bed, do you charge those 2.5 hours? I sure do charge those 2.5 hours, because this thing seemed fully intent on being fixed. For those wondering, it is not that uncommon for dedicated LAN network jacks to go. You just use a USB one or a USB-C one. Even on desktops, it is not that uncommon. I'm sure you've seen front panel header or front panel USB ports go on cases. Like, none of that is uncommon to see. You just work around it and you tell them, like, hey, yep, well, we got an option of replacing the entire computer or just using this adapter. And they're like, adapter or hub or whatever. Like, they're going to do that. So that's not uncommon to keep running it after the network jack goes. You just find another way to get that going, and you run it until something like this happens. But those 2 things, that the network jack already being dead, and this kind of like sort of it's kind of like when electronics go fizzle pop, they leave like this like darkened like shadow around the port often. That's kind of what that reminds me of for the network jack. And then that sort of how the chrome is gone on the AC adapter. That also happens when you get electrical short, because what it can do is it can take the finish off of like the chromed plating off. So this thing might have been zapped. The hope is, though, that what we can do is we can take this NUC 10 and just, because like the drives checked fine. I was actually able to check them with Crystal Disk Info when this was still running. It took like 15 minutes to open, and even took like a minute or 2 to switch between. For those that know Crystal Disk Info, you can click between the tabs. It would take like multiple minutes to click from this tab to that tab. This thing was not happy. What we have here, though, is sadly not the latest NUC. It is as close as I could get. And the reason I think there is due to tariffs. I know, probably going to get this black hole, though, so I took so long to get to the new NUC. I could not get the brand newest NUC. This is a NUC 14. That would be a Ultra 1, or a Core Ultra 1. They technically have NUC 15s out. However, no place that I looked that I have bought these in the past from had NUC 15s in the USA, and we needed this faster than. So you've ordered direct from China. I think it was like at least $30. Also with current tariffs, it's probably going to get here and cost a bunch more. And the NUC 15s were like $200 more than this NUC 14, I want to say, for the same spec. Like, this is an i7. This is not the top one, because this is still like, this is a direct replacement to this guy. This is just the NUC Pro. They have like slimmer, wider ones. They also have ones that can take like graphics cards and stuff like that. For those are like the NUC Extremes, not the NUC Pros. But here we've got, this one is a NUC 14 RVUH7. So I believe this just should be Intel Ultra 7 155H. Plenty new enough. The new work laptop that I helped my mom spec out for her job, as well as Peyton, if you've seen her on the channel before. He picked up the same one as she did. That went to the 155H. So it is one generation old as of like end of last year. Not even technically, like the CPUs were announced like around Black Friday last year, or a bit before that even. But even in CES, we didn't have systems. Like, they were pre-orderable. I know the second gen stuff is out now and you can like get it. Oddly, the graphics cards, like say if you want an NVIDIA graphics card and stuff, the mobile stuff, that isn't out yet. So a lot of the laptop part-based Intel, like Core Ultra second gen stuff, has been delayed because you can't easily get like a 5060 or a 5070. Some of those might have just come out at Computex, but they're not going to come out with a whole new Intel second gen laptop without putting the newer other parts in it, like the newer graphics cards and that sort of stuff. So that's why, like, even though the CPUs are technically available, they're not like readily available. Also, this is only a Wi-Fi 6E 2x2 in Bluetooth. That would probably mean an AX 210, not the what was it, like the 400 or whatever, which is not compatible with many, like the Wi-Fi 7 chips are very incompatible. But it's effectively this, and I had to find a place that still sold the fat ones, because we want to just move these drives over. Some of the newer even NUC Pros from ASUS, that is the big change that I kind of let fall off there, is this is an Intel NUC, that is an ASUS NUC. Technically, if you want support for this now, you actually go to ASUS's website. Because Intel was going to kill off the NUC, but people were like, no, we freaking use those. And like all these third parties rely on there being like a model that they can base it off of and stuff like that. But Intel, to say it again, because they're falling apart monetarily and they're trying to sell off every unit that they can that isn't their main either foundry unit or their main compute unit, you know, they can make money off of. They sold it to ASUS, which kind of sucks because ASUS is not known for their support all that well, like when you need help with stuff, and these are primarily business machines. By the way, also very awesome HTPCs, especially once they got Thunderbolt on them, because their HDMI can actually do CEC controls. Hopefully all that is maintained in the ASUS NUC. A lot of people were worried that they just bought the brand and then they had to support the old ones, but it looks like a lot of like the engineering has come across. Yes, the external vibe has been updated to look more ASUS-y, you know, or than, you know, Intel style. And they do have like a NUC Pro X or something like that, or a NUC X Pro, or like I said, is like this like wider, flatter, more modern looking. This is the one you want though. Is the old classic. So this is a NUC 14 Ultra, Intel Ultra 1. The 2s are available. However, I did not find anywhere in stock in the USA that could ship them, and the ones from China were 30 days or more out, and we don't know if they're gonna have a tariff when they come in, etc. on it. So I thought I would do an unboxing for you here because, you know, this is a relatively new product. Some of you may be interested in it if you deal with this stuff professionally, or you're interested, you know, maybe you've used Intel NUCs before. Like I said, I have used them since at least, I don't know if they were introduced in 2nd or 3rd gen, but I have a 4th gen one kicking around here. I believe my dad has an extra one of my 4th gens in his garage that runs his PC that he programs computers with and stuff. Programs cars with. There you go. Like that. So, you know, you need the garage thing to look up manuals. We got a monitor mount on the wall, that sort of stuff. I think this is a 4th gen that's running that right now. I know I have a 6th gen kicking around here someplace, maybe an 8th gen. The 10th gen, that's when they went to this dark color rather than the silver one. Huge upgrade. I don't know if 10th gen's when they got Thunderbolt. It might have been earlier, but that was another big upgrade. This guy has 20 gig USB on the front, which I believe is also Thunderbolt. Nope, that's just a power charging one. And I don't think they have a picture on the back, so let's get this guy out the box here. So here's the other hope. Because I saw the drives are good, theoretically, we hook this RAM in, 32 gig kit. If you're building any machine nowadays, or putting any machine, unless it has a very limited spec of what it's going to be doing, it should have 32 gigs nowadays. Also, it's cheapest chips. This only had 16. Like that, if I could have got this one back up and running, that might have been one of my recommendations. Is like, hey, we should get that up to 32. Chuck that RAM in there, and then rip the 2 drives out of this and move them over to this. Windows may be a bit grumpy because we're going from 10th gen to Ultra 1st gen, right? But should be able to get in and just uninstall the old drivers. Maybe I have to do boot into safe mode, which often will reset drivers to the like the Microsoft generic ones. You can use that to get around like if you originally used RAID mode and now you need to use AHCI, or you need to move your HCI install to like an NVMe GPT install. There's a way to convert it and that sort of stuff. So we can use safe mode as kind of like an in-between there. You know, I've even used this to convert Intel to AMD systems, that sort of stuff. That's another thing here. They're like, well, why didn't you get like the Chinese like NUC-esque systems that are much cheaper that run the AMD ones? Well, this specific place has run Intel, like I said, for basically forever. We know their stuff works on it. It needs to run critical applications that run their software. I think at least one, if not multiple, of those software specifically recommends Intel. I see this a lot in the banking industry as well. So we're not fucking with it. You know, back when we had we didn't use a Synology for video surveillance, but we had a dedicated system. I would have had no problem using AMD for that because that's not running the like, dude, cows of Wi-Fi. Okay, it's not running the cow Wi-Fi software. It's just recording surveillance. You know. So let's take a little sneaky peek on here, and we, like I said, we could have probably gotten away with using AMD for that. Whereas these, I just don't want to risk it. And like I said, a lot of them do either they specify Intel or they only give Intel compatible specs. So that's what we're going with. So we have 2 10 gig USB on the front. Previously, we only had 1 10 gig A or 1 10 gig C. So we have 2 10 gig A's. This is plastic. That is a downer. They make it look like it might be like a really dark metal. These, on all the Intel NUCs since forever, that is aluminum on the front. Like the whole shroud is aluminum. Back in the day, you didn't necessarily have these vents on the side. That might be solid, but the thing acted as a heatsink. On the top here, this always was plastic. Now, previously, they would have made it this glossy plastic, which was always nasty and got super dirty, especially when there's cow poop and other animal poop and dirt and mud and stuff like that. But the top always has to be plastic, just like on like a Mac Mini. The tops are plastic on there, or they have like bottom things that are also plastic. The antennas need to go someplace. Need to come out your Bluetooth, your Wi-Fi, all that sort of stuff. NFC, some of these had certain generations. You know, all that has to be on the top. And for those running, yep, it's usually this side, not the bottom, because the bottom, this is for a VESA mount, so you can mount it on the back of a monitor if you want to hide it. If you need an all-in-one, don't buy an all-in-one. Buy a NUC and slap it on the back of a monitor. So I'm happy to see this black matte plastic on the top rather than that shiny. I think Intel just kept that because all of them have literally been like that. I do wish they definitely cheaped out on that stuff. This feels like cheap ASUS laptop plastic. So we have the 20 gig USB. We got two 10 gig USB A's. We got some ventilation on this side. That's very similar, right? Full ventilation. Then on this side was an SD card reader. They nixed the SD card reader. I have no problem with that. Now, why that could be useful for the SD card reader, I think those might have been PCI Express SD card readers, because this is considered NUC as next unit of computing. Like, you could have booted off of that, much like a lot of people would boot a Raspberry Pi off of a SD card. These NUCs are kind of, think of them as like, I need a Raspberry Pi but x86. That's kind of a NUC for, you know. This one's actually not even open, so that's not even ventilated on this side. It's only ventilated on the side and the back. Then on the back here, we have, I think this is a smarter way to go. We have dual HDMI, right? Then you have dual Thunderbolt 1 and 2, rather than one front, one back. You have 10 gig USB and the classic, which was missing here. Now, if you go back a generation, they still had one USB 2 and one USB 3 back here. This one, because they realized some of this ancient shit that you plug these into, and you can buy custom ones of these from third-party brands that'll have like a whack ton of USB 2, or you have 6 serial ports, or all kinds of shit. Oh, here you can see it's supposed to be shiny like that. See that? So I think it might have gotten kazapped. And then we went 2.5 gig Ethernet because Intel has that as part of their thing. They got that as part of their killer networking stuff. So they have their own 2.5 gig controller. The build on this in general feels cheaper and worse than the build on this 10th gen. And this is a 14th gen, but it runs the Core Ultra 1st gen stuff. It looks like they made entry into this toolless. What? No fucking way. Now that's awesome. Now this might have been on an earlier gen that wasn't, because this is an Intel one. This is a 10th gen, remember. 4 screws in the corners. That has been the way it has been since the first NUC I've ever used. Then they have these 2 screws here. That's for the VESA mount bracket. You put little screws that screw in here, and it snaps on like that. And you can face it either way, in case you do need people to access it. There are also brackets that you could get for these that rather than just mounting on the back, you could leave the VESA mount in the middle and then mount this off to one side. Those are the ones that I generally like, because if you're putting this on a VESA mount, why is the monitor not on a VESA mount too? This is considerably lighter, that's for sure. But what's really cool is toolless. That's wild. Is that a dual NVMe? There's dual NVMe in here. I gotta get my flashlight. I gotta disconnect this hard drive base so I don't wreck it. Alright. Flashlight. Purple streamlight. There's a dual NVMe. Do you see it's stacked? No, I'm wrong. It's just a really tall peg. That's why I had to get the flashlight out. That looks like it could have been a dual NVMe, but now that I have a flashlight in there and on there, that is a single one. See, that peg to me looked like that could have been a dual stacked peg. Like as in you put one in, then you can put the second one in on top of it. Let's read which. This is an Intel AX210. Oh, sorry, 211 D2W. I think the only difference between the 210 and 211 is if you look at this, this is a BGA chip rather than a M.2 style chip. Oh, there's an M key NVMe, a little shorter guy, so you can get 2 NVMe in here. It's a little shorter one. See, there's a full length 2280 that goes that full length there, and then there's an M key NVMe that looks not like a crap. Hopefully I didn't lose it. No, I didn't. Good. Okay, we got this little guy, which is a Sabrent 2230. That's too small. We need the size in between, in betwixt those two. I'm very surprised they did that, because this size is far more common than the in-between sized. However, most manufacturers will make, if they make that slightly bigger size, which is, if that's 2280 and this is 2230, that's going to be like a 2250, or I think, I don't know off the top of my head. I think Sabrent has one, but it's even an older design for them. So like I almost wish they just made it the smaller one. For the RAM, for those wondering, usually on my customer builds or my business builds, I just use Crucial. Reason being is this model of Crucial, or any model of Crucial, if you want this exact set again, the CT16H, blah, 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 when you go to buy it again, it will be this exact thing. If they change a chip or they change the NAND manufacturer, it will get a new model. So if you truly do need to track down the same one, you can in the future. This is unlike Corsair or some of these more gaming brands, which they'll have like the model, but they'll have like version 1.6, version 6, version blah, 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 blah. And like how HyperX and WD have done it with their SSDs, by the time you swap, like they can swap every part of it. Like if they swap the controller, the DRAM cache, the NAND manufacturer, the NAND type, the case, they even went from aluminum to plastic, and they still call it the same model with the same model number, that's fucking bullshit. Crucial makes sure that this model number is for this model. Like they don't change sub one. If they do, they'll make a new model. This model will go into the discontinued. But then you can still find a person who still has a kit of these, or has a used kit of these, or has back stock of it or something, so you can get that model again if you for some reason specifically need that one. In this case, I just looked up on Crucial's memory configurator what their recommended kit was, dropped in 2x16 for the amount, and this is what Crucial spit out to get. So we went on Amazon and got that. We're going to drop those in right there, because this is DDR5. This guy is going to be DDR4, so we can't carry those over. I've swapped NUCs out enough times for various places and stuff like that, where, like we've, because a lot of generations used DDR3, DDR4. Sometimes you're literally swapping this guy, or sometimes you're swapping out this guy because you need more compute. And you can move, even though you're a couple generations forward, you can move over the RAM. I mean, they used to come with even socketed Wi-Fi cards. So you could save some money there by, like, if you know you're not going to use Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, just don't put one in, right? So we got our RAM. That's in. And it does look like the M.2 and the hard drive are even toolless. It does look like there might be 2 screws in here that, as we look right there towards the bottom, there's a screw hole. No, oh, sorry, up the top. Screw hole right there that we could probably put in the drive. The front one has this indentation, so it'll just snap in there. If I remember correctly, So this panel on the bottom, if you look, that is a cutout for a VGA, like an optional VGA or serial plug right there. More than likely, there's a little header in here. One of these guys right there, or those two little guys up in the corner. So that guy down there that looks like front panel, that could be like a serial or USB, and you got those two headers up there. I'd have to consult the manual to see which is which, but one of those likely goes to, and this back panel, if you know, it is just plastic with screws. That is because all sorts of different things can actually get put back here. You want 2 more USBs, there's probably an adapter you can get for that. You want, you know, like your serial port like they have, or a VGA, that's coming off of something on there. Also that M key NVMe or the NVMe only, remember, and that's just PCI Express lanes. So you can, there are brands that make adapters that slot into those internally, and maybe the cutout back here isn't big enough, but they have like a pass-through for the cable that then snaps in on there, and then you can have like a 10 gig Ethernet adapter. There are some of these that will get reconfigured from the factory, because realistically the NUC is more the shape, like the size dimensions, as well as the PCB and how that hooks up to the, like the fan and that sort of stuff, like the dimensions and like the layout of, you know, like with this hard drive here, or if you don't have that, you just have a shorter one with NVMe's. And then each generation kind of has a default layout of the inputs and outputs. Like the some of the things they say don't change, I'm sure, like DC jack. There's also this little screw in the back. I'm sure that's for something specific that I don't remember off the top of my head. But otherwise, there are places, like I said, like way back in the day, you'd see one of these with the whole back of them being serial ports. Or you'd see the whole back of them being USB ports. And not just this little panel. That seems to be more of a recent thing. The 14th and 15th gens have it. If we get inside of this guy, it has the headers, but the native arrangement of the box itself doesn't have like a you call it like a punch out, right? Because you saw that little, like the blank spot. You have to punch that out and take this black plastic piece off, and you could use it. Or you can get different inserts or 3D print your own thing there for whatever you're having pass through that area there. But I love this, the fact that this is toolless. Especially because how quickly, now I'm taking, you're like, oh, but you're taking forever. It can't be quick at all. Yeah, I'm trying to talk to you and explain it to you as I'm doing it. Let me see what else is in this brand new box here. So we just got some sort of paper, some molded paper style stuff. All right, come on, cooperate with me. Come on. Okay, so that whole shit didn't move. So under here, it looks to be the power brick. This is way smaller than the other one. On the 10th gen, at least. Then we have the VESA adapter right there. This plate is the VESA adapter. I mean, a lot of this is going to have to come out anyway. So here's the other power cable end. Often these are very, very short. I will buy a longer, just like a C, I don't think that's a C13, because that's the desktop one. Unless my brain knows more than I'm skipping brain things. So you have this weird little hooky guy on the back. These you'll often see on like power supplies on servers to hold, like to make it so that like the cable can't get unplugged from the power supply. That goes right here. So I would not be surprised if that is strain relief for the power cable. So like you can plug it in and then loop it through. I can read the manual and check. But a lot of these, like I said, are implemented in like industrial, in not just small business, but just business and enterprise in general. So having like, if this is like this would screw in and then hook the power cable. That's highly likely to be what that is. And then here are all these screws and adapters for the base mount. So pretty standard. I don't remember older ones having this, but maybe this is a requested thing. I also don't know if it was added. I don't know when, because the newest one of these that I dealt with, I believe, was an 11th gen. And I don't know that it was any different from this 10th gen. But I put another one of these, a number of these 10th gens in service. You go until it clicks, because these screws are self-retaining. And you just pull up with the feet. Okay. Just like this other guy, we have crucial ballistics RAM in there. That'd be their gaming line. I want to say that was probably what they recommended when I looked up this model at the time. Or if I wanted, like, say 3200 speed or something, that was only available in their ballistics, which would have been their gaming RAM. Ballistics has since been killed and canceled. I really like their stuff. Any of the like CAD or what do you want to call them, machines, like performance professional level machines that didn't require ECC RAM, I often stuck ballistics RAM in there. Crucial said, kind of like when they sold off Lexar, that the ballistics RAM, because Micron owns Crucial, Micron makes the NAND, but basically Lexar, as much as they were perfectly profitable, they didn't make enough money to even put a dent in the kind of money that Micron was making, much less that Crucial made. Or, you know, like compared to like Crucial and other stuff. So that's why they sold off Lexar. Lexar nowadays, by the way, is not the Lexar of old. In my opinion, do not buy them. They are just a Chinese rebrand. Actually, that stuff should be coming out. I'm not saying bad for China, but it's not like, if you had good, like, you know, the Lexar brand from when they were big, a big name, like in your SD cards and your professional SD cards, your professional SD card readers and that sort of stuff, that is not the same Lexar brand. Those engineers, as well as some from SanDisk, went and made pro-grade digital. That's who you want to look at. But ballistics kind of had the same fate, where Crucial is like, oh, our gaming brand, like, we're not really a gaming brand place. We make like dead bog standard, I can't remember the name of the standard speed of RAM, but like not XMP, like that's our big bulk of our stuff. We're just going to go do that going forward. And we're not going to do XMP. And then now it would be Expo for AMD rated RAM. And here they do, and they come back, and now they have Crucial Pro, which is exactly how I used it. It's basically RAM with XMP and Expo profiles, except intended for like a prosumer or a workstation point of view. Because even like the higher end, or like Threadripper and stuff, can use XMP profiles, right? So that would be at like a CAD workstation level or something. I think even one of the, like, there's like Xeons that are overclockable and stuff now. To do that stuff, at least if you want auto, easily configurable RAM stuffs, you need to have that profile right there to make it easy on you. So they came back, and though Ballistics isn't back, because they nixed that brand, I don't remember if they sold it off. They may or may not have. Kind of how Kingston sold HyperX off to, I think, HP now. And then now they just kept Fury, I think, because Kingston still makes Fury, like that went to be with their RAM once they got rid of HyperX, and now the Fury brand, they're making peripherals again under the Fury brand instead of the HyperX brand. You know, because it's like, of course we're gonna do it, and realistically with HyperX, if I recall correctly, they were buying the name in the existing product portfolio, not the, like, you know, like with the NUC, other stuff potentially came with it. Or they agreed to more stuff. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to pull out this NVMe SSD, and I'm going to pull out this really filthy SATA SSD. Both of those are going to go in the new NUC, and we are going to plug it in and see if it turns on and boots. You guys may or may not see that bit, but I will move these parts over. Probably going to do this NVMe guy first, because it's way cleaner. And that guy, I need to get it like a microfiber or something on. Interesting thing here, you can see here, that is a thermal pad. So what they ended up doing is, because NVMEs are on fire at all times, especially the controller, they synced, using a thermal pad, the NVMe drive to the, it looks like they bumped up, because they do not need this to be as thick. There's no reason the front of this needs to bump up right here, right? But they purposely bumped it up and put a thermal pad on it so it would contact the NVMe and act as a heatsink. Look at that. That's good engineering. It even took Razer like a half a generation of their laptop to realize, oh, we have a milled aluminum chassis laptop. What if we took a thermal pad and just synced the NVMe to the chassis? Wow. And I had done that in my previous generation, so that when my laptop got replaced and they already had that there, I'm like, look at that! It's almost like this was a known issue. Of course, nobody would admit that, right? So, looks like there's a little cap of some kind. Yep. So with this guy here, there's a little cap that holds. See, there's a little peg that goes way in there, and then you pull that out. All you do is put the NVMe in there, cap that back on there, and we're good to go. If you notice over here on this one, though there are two thermal pads, which I think are already peeled. Yeah, they're already peeled. There's actually copper now in this part that was raised. And they didn't raise this back piece. They put rubber buffer in there instead to keep it nice and tight. There's some over here too. But they actually put a thermal or a copper piece rather than just relying on the steel, the stamped steel for the chassis, probably because there's a lot less with this. There's no aluminum outer on this anymore. It's just plastique. Listen to that. Plastique. They needed something a bit more, you know, or they found out that swapping that like little riveted piece with a copper piece instead of using just the already existing steel shroud was more efficient. We need a Philippe number one. Monsieur Philippe. LTT screwdrivers. Might as well, right? Philippe number one. I do like the case for these. The rest of the LTT screwdriver, I don't know. It's really expensive now due to the tariffs. I can tell you that much. Apparently, specifically the precision one was hit super duper hard. So often, what would have happened on the older NUCs is that under here there would have been another slot. So you would actually stack your either M.2s or M SATAs or M PCIe and then an M SATA. Yeah, even this, there's quite a bit of dust on there. That I can take off with my hand, no problem. But I really should get a microfiber. BRBRB. Dude, you're stretching out over there. We got King already like max stretching over there. So we got a little microfiber here just to get off this dust. And I would consider this to be a good drive. Hopefully they do not need to replace it. But this is back when WDX made good SSDs. They make like fine ones now. You gotta double check though. This is just a standard SN750. This is when Western Digital, this is like Western Digital's first product after buying SanDisk and basically making them a part of Western Digital rather than operating separately. During this period, this was kind of like one of the first products that, and for a while they operated together, like as in SanDisk would design a product, but there would be a Western Digital and a SanDisk version. That was super duper easy. I'm glad they're making these easier to work on. Like, you just pop that in there. There's enough room to go over that lip. It's just held in. Brilliant. Like, that is a huge improvement. That toolless back. I mean, like, these screws are sturdy. Like, I remember a lot of these are VESA mounted. There's a lock on there that is not on by default that I will probably turn on. But that is smooth. I'm loving all these M.2 things that are getting toolless and not in like dumb ways. Because some of the ones I've seen are like kind of shit and a pain in the ass. Like, I'd rather just use a screw with how much of a pain in the ass they are to use. Holy jeez, is this screwed in? It is screwed in. Okay, we need Philippe 2 because of course we do. So I did screw this drive in right here. I don't know why they used Phillips 2 for this screw. Jeez. And you're like, why? Like, if you call that Western Digital drive good, why should I not use other Western Digital drives? Or why are they like not good now? Well, they don't exist anymore. Well, they do kind of still, but SanDisk has been separated back off of Western Digital because what they ended up deciding was that them kind of making two of it, they were basically competing with themselves. But then you have to remember the whole reason why Western Digital bought SanDisk was to enter. They wanted, SanDisk is one of the few companies, just like your Micron, your Samsung, Kioxia, which used to be Toshiba, and SO-DIMM, that was Intel. They're one of the few places that actually makes their own NAND flash. Yeah, see, cleaned up. That was just dust. Made up real nice with a little microfiber action there. They're one of the few places that actually makes their own NAND flash. So Western Digital wanted to enter that market. Now, what I'm probably going to do is I have an extra... we know this thing's dead, but I may try and play around with it a little bit more. I have a 950 Pro that I just use for like testing. If I have a motherboard that has issues and I want to just check if like it's the OS drive and not the like somebody's OS installation or even my own and that's corrupted it, or even just the drive being in there, I'll just pop that 950 Pro in. It's not my original one. David still is running that. It's a 256, which actually only has half the performance as compared to the 512. But I will probably pop that in here and or run it as is just to see if I can get it back. But I doesn't even see power right now. But like I said, I don't want to do that on the place's dime because I can't guarantee that I'm even going to be able to bring it back, right? I thought I could because it was still running. All the drives checked out okay. And but but sadly, no dice. Okay, so the one thing I can tell you out of the gate here is that this is designed to take much thicker drives. So that'll probably take, because I think this is like the 7mm thickness. This is an 860 EVO 1 terabyte. That's what we're using to back up our WD Black 500 gigabyte. Here's my dirty, washed a couple times, yellow 3M cloth. These are the ones I recommend. I can't find my glasses ones anymore. I can give you guys the model. If you know where to get these guys, let me know. Used to be able to buy them at Walmart. Then they stopped carrying them. They're 3M, or sometimes they're under, like these are under Scotch-Brite now, the big ones. So I think at one point they were sold under Zeiss as well. And I usually buy like 10 packs every couple of years, every year, 2 to 3 at most. I will buy like a 10 or a 20 pack of them. And or last time I think I had to buy two 10 packs, and they're still listed on Amazon, but they're unavailable. So either the current tariffs are stopping them from coming in, which I guess I didn't check if it was made in China, or another thing that I like, just like made in the USA X-Acto blades and my full stick, super sticky notes, and certain other things that I like have been discontinued. So I wouldn't put them past that to discontinue the little, those were called, when they were sold at Walmart, they were glasses cleaning cloths, then they were lens cleaning cloths, then they were electronic cleaning cloths for like cleaning your phone and stuff like that. They're by far the best. I keep one in on my desk for cleaning like glasses, the mice, getting any sort of oily residue off stuff. They're a really nice one. Like I keep it in my glasses case. And usually I can go, I don't know, quarter of a year or more without swapping it. But like once you start wiping your glasses and they get worse because you're wiping smudges and smears on them, that's when it's time to get a new one out. So here's the lock right there. So theoretically what we do is we grab our flathead in here and we just, well, we have to put the screwdriver on, I guess. Okay, put the screwdriver on it because this is open. Push this way. So then this, turning it, there you go. Can't unlock it now. Yeah, and then you use these same 2 screws here to put the VESA mount on. And the other 4 screws with the VESA mount screws must be to mount it to the monitor. Assuming that's the right I don't know that with any mount I've ever been given the correct screws to screw into the VESA mount on the display. Like that, they should have really standardized the threading of the screw and the length of it. Because, geez. But yeah, so I will say, build-wise, I do like that they went to this sort of matte, scratchy plastic on the top. They do still give you kind of this lip around it that you used to get on the older NUCs. But that is molded in, for sure. Not anything fancy. I'm glad they didn't protect it with like that peel, because it's not like true gloss. Like a true gloss, often you have to like peel it off and like, glad they didn't do that. I am kind of bummered that the outside of this is not that aluminum chassis. Maybe that's not needed, but it did give these things some sort of like heft to them that made them feel real quality. One thing I will say is, and I was like kind of confused by that, they were showing this and they were saying behind here is the hard drive, or the hard drive slot, like 2.5-inch slot. Well, you guys saw. I don't think that that's correct. What that is, in reality, is that's your punch out for if you want to do non-standard things, like you want to get adapters for this. I don't know if the specs specifically called out that you can fit a 12mm SSD in here. Yeah, like this doesn't line up at all. Like this, like I thought maybe the SATA connector is on that side. No, the SATA connector is right in front of me right here. And yeah, with how this is, you could probably fit one of those chunky, like those thick, what are those called? U.2 SSDs in there, like where that SATA hard drive is. And what you do is actually take out the SATA one, and you would get a U.2 to M.2 adapter, and you could probably fit that chunky guy in here if you needed that sort of like, you know, like 12 terabytes of industrial storage. Like that is definitely an improvement over the previous NUC, which I don't know if it could fit those full, like the 12 millimeter drives or anything like that. Like, or you could put like a SATA or a SAS, like those thicker 2.5 ones, which are like 10K. You might be able to get that in there. I don't know why you would use an SSD nowadays, but you know that's where you commonly see the thicker drives. Even the up until I got these thin WD blues that are like, they're not like, there's 5 millimeter drives for those running. Those are the super slim ones, but I think they're in standard 9 millimeter. They might have even been 7 for these slim. Like they're epoxied over on the top for the hard drives. They're only 5,400 RPMs. But even like a 750 gig black WD black was like a full 9 millimeter drive back in the day. So there's plenty of room for that. I'm sure a lot of the stuff in here is left. Like if they can fit it, they will, because they know for certain applications, people are going to modify them and maybe not put the drive out. You take the connector out for the one thing, you put a different connector in there, and then you have those different M.2 NVMe slots. Or for example, if you are going to use these back guys here for adapters, there's a high chance that you can't use, like if you want to use this punch out for different connections, depending on the depth of the adapter, or the, like, you know, like the plug and the cable that routes inside, I don't know if you could also use the hard drive bay, if that makes sense, because like there's only so much space in this. But if you do want the ability to use this punch out, you have to get what's called the tall model. You know, so I don't know everything about these, like I said, but I have implemented a lot of them, you know, in a number of places. Some proprietary ones that they order from, like for machinery in factory floors, that will have a whack ton of serial ports right on the back. Some of these also, instead of having this fan up here, another big thing that was early on in the NUC development is, and it came to like this chassis being aluminum, you can get ones that don't have the plastic top and everything, and the entire chassis, usually these I think are Max i3 models, which I know it isn't anymore. It'd be Core Ultra 3 or whatever. Those you could get in like, in especially the Celeron and Pentium versions, because remember, these are basically like x86 Raspberry Pis. It's completely passive. Like the housing around it would, and those are great in factories or in this farm scenario. If you, especially if you're having to put it by the animals, you would want something like that so you don't have to worry about dust ingress and that sort of stuff. So like that was a big thing with this. You know, next unit of computing is designed to be like, okay, you set that up, or a lot of these you can get too with a whack ton of displays on them, instead of just like this one HDMI and the Thunderbolt. A lot of older ones would have like multiple mini display ports on them, because they'd be used for what do you want to say, digital display advertising and that sort of stuff. So you need like, you know, multiple mini display ports out to go to whatever it is that you're doing. So it says here, ASUS brand technical ASUS NUC is a partnership between ASUS and Intel, compact yet robust, combining exceptional performance, blah blah blah, NUC standards computing, committed to delivering brand promise of providing next gen computing a lasting impact over the tech landscape. So basically they're saying they took over the NUC. There's like a safety guide, there's a collateral guide, I don't know what that means. visit that for integration guide, download center, or scan thing. This is probably drivers, warranty information. I was hoping there'd be something in here explaining the little screw on the back that I think is for the power cable. I'll show you what I mean. I think this guy right here, because it's got to go either this way, right, like, whoops, or it's got to go that way. I think that's more correct. So, you see what I mean? I think that is just to hold power cable. It's right here. So that even if you get it unplugged, you can't lose it because it's routed through there. And it's got a loopy loop, or you route it up and then it sticks up and you plug it in here. I will have to look that up because there's a gap here still. You see that? So if I loosen this, so technically you can flip it around and put it this way, but then you're kind of blocking a vent. That doesn't seem right to me. It is right in line with the power plug then, but my guess is you're supposed to be able to loosen it, put it here, slip that cable under, you know, and then yeah, to help prevent that from getting unplugged, basically. Because like I said, a lot of these are on kiosks. They're on maybe not like a POS terminal, but they could be, depending. Especially with this being your display port, like a USB-C, like proper USB-C, especially the ones back here that are Thunderbolt. Those, like I have the touch displays that are both display, touch, and it all goes over the one USB-C that you can send to like a laptop or something like that. You can also do that here. So theoretically, you don't need to buy an all-in-one anymore. What you do is you buy one of those USB-C powered and controlled displays that's touchscreen, right? And you plug it into the USB-C port on this, and you now have an all-in-one. A lot of those monitors also have face mounts. So you take this and you smash that on the back of it, and you now have an all-in-one. Or you get one of the adapters that offsets this for VESA mounting, so you can smash both the monitor and this on a VESA mount, and that way it's way more repairable, because if the compute goes, you just replace the box. If the display goes, you just replace the display. It's not some proprietary bullshit. I do like the cable management loops on the back because they assume you're going to be doing with it, and there's always a gap for the VESA mount, that how this snaps in, right? And you can loop cables around this way and cleanly run them underneath the unit a lot of the times, and you cable management giving up slack to be able to snap in. Like this seems to be very well thought out, and I don't have the base mount screws in, but this mechanism, I don't know if this came with the ASUS NUCs or not, because you saw the 10th gen that I had, and 11th was not much different. I haven't seen the 12th or the 13th that I can think of offhand. I might be wrong. Maybe I'm hallucinating that, and I'm thinking now there might have been a 12th gen, but I had to get the i5, so it didn't have the efficiency cores in there, because that can throw some issues into things, at least at the time. So let me know, questions, comments, etc. down below. Yeah, I thought I'd give you a sneak peek at the new ASUS. Ever since ASUS has bought the NUC, what it looks like as a difference. I'd say, like, I'm a-okay with not having this glossy top. It always got, even if you get fingerprints, it gets grimy as. The other thing I had to keep telling people is don't put shit on top of it. That's where the antennas are and everything. Because people would be like, oh, it's a nice coaster, effectively. But I don't mind that being on. I do kind of miss the aluminum. But like with how this is so ventilated now, the vents used to be cut directly into this aluminum, and even here you can see this is more of like a punched and pressed insert that then's put over. Once you start gutting so much of the frame, like, is it even worth doing like an aluminum shell on the outside versus plastique, you know. And actually, this one might be plastic. It is plastic. I'm crazy. They made this one plastic already. So probably a bunch of you are screaming at the camera that the 10th gen you have in your hand is not metal. Blah 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 blah. Damn, did they do a good job matching their older, actually metal NUCs? Holy shit. And on that note, it's time to see if that thing boots and hit the hay. Got the work tomorrow. Yeah, it's the old NUC shedding. I don't know if you saw it dust like, or it's shedding, like, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's got shit falling out of it. Possibly literal shit. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.